Hello, welcome back to ChangeTheReel, and in this episode I will be counting down my top 10 horror movies of all time. First, I start off with my honorable mention, the Japanese movie Audition. If you're not familiar with this movie is about a middle-aged widower who is urged on to start dating again. And with the help of his film producer friend, they devised a plan to hold a phony film audition to meet new women. He ends up falling for this beautiful ballerina, and unknown to him, she is actually a serial killer. The reason why this makes it on my honorable mention and not higher on my list is because majority of the movie actually is quite slow. It starts off really slow, and it's a really slow build-up and a really slow burn. It's not until the end of the movie where things actually start to become absolutely terrifying. The ending of this movie is probably still one of the most terrifying images I've ever seen in film. It makes me squirm just watching it. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched it, but it is very, very disturbing. Coming in at number 10 on my list is Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan. I absolutely love his work. And I'll probably get some people angry at me that Psycho does not make it on my list. But if I had to pick which Alfred Hitchcock movie was scarier, it would be The Birds. If you're unfamiliar with the story of The Birds, it follows our lead, Melanie Daniels, as she travels to a small fishing community where she pursues a eligible bachelor. Suddenly, and with no explanation, flocks of birds start attacking the town. Not only is this movie shot beautifully and done in really great direction with good special effects that only the master himself can do. One of the things I think makes this movie a little bit more terrifying than Psycho is that it is Alfred Hitchcock's monster movie. Unlike most monster movies in which you have this unknown monster attacking people, he made birds into a movie monster. And one of the things that makes this movie works as a really good movie is that there is absolutely no explanation ever given why the birds are attacking. Even with the last scene, you don't know if they make it out. Never get any explanation of why the birds are attacking. And also, how can I have a top 10 horror movie list without having Alfred Hitchcock on here somewhere?
She is the devil's concubine!
Number 9 on my list is Bram Stoker's Dracula. I wanted to have Dracula on my list, but which version? I was torn between this, the 1992 version, or the original 1931 version. I like both of those movies. I went with the Francis Ford Coppola film because I like the imagery in this movie. This is a very beautifully shot movie. It's still one of my favorite movies to watch. In many ways, it's still faithful to the original novel. One of the things that makes this movie stand out to me is the special effects. All the special effects in this movie was done using techniques and styles that could be used in the late 1920s and the early 1930s. Even though there was more modern techniques that could have been used to make the movie cheaper and faster, Coppola decided to only use old techniques to show that even though you're using the old techniques, you could still make a very beautiful movie, make it work for a modern movie. It's probably not the most scariest of the movies that I have on my list, but it is still a very beautiful movie. I love it a great deal. I love watching this movie.
I'm so sorry.
Number 8 is the Blair Witch Project. As you may know by my review of the recent Blair Witch movie, I really love the Blair Witch Project. It is really the only found footage movie that I really highly enjoy. For people who might not be familiar with it, the movie is about 3 film students who go into the Black Woods near Burkittsville in search of the legend of the Blair Witch. On their search, they get lost in the woods and they are never found again. And the only thing that was ever found was their footage. This movie makes it on my top 10 because when I watched this movie in the theater, it absolutely terrified me. I think it was probably more of the experience of the theater itself, the setting, than it was the actual film itself, because although the Blair Witch was really terrifying the first time you watch it, on repeat viewings it no longer becomes scary the more times you watch it. The best part about this movie is actually the mystery of what happened to the students, and there are many theories out there. But with that, Blair Witch is number 8 on my list. Number 7 on my list is another Japanese film, Ringu. You might be more familiar with the Americanized remake, The Ring. I prefer the original Japanese version over the Americanized version. I like the characters better in the Japanese version, and I think the story flows a little bit better. And I actually think that even though the Americanized version probably has a little bit better special effects, I like the look and the feel of the Japanese version. I think it's a little bit more rough around the edges, and it gives it that more of the terrifying look. If you are unfamiliar with Ringu, it's about a mysterious videotape in which, when a viewer watches it, they get a very mysterious phone call. After the phone call, you will die exactly 7 days later by what looks to be like a heart attack. The story follows a news reporter and her ex-husband who try to uncover why a bunch of healthy teenagers are apparently dying of heart attacks. They end up finding the tape, watching it, and then they have to try to find and figure out a way to lift the curse before they die in 7 days. This movie, I think, is much better than the original Japanese version. It just makes more sense. If you've watched the original Ring but have not seen Ringu, I think it's in your best interest to actually watch the original. I think the American version just loses a little bit of something. That's number 7, Ringu. Number 6 on my list is Reanimator. Reanimator is based off of a story written by H.P. Lovecraft. If you watch my H.P. Lovecraft special, you'll realize that I am a very big Lovecraft fan, and I think this is one of the best H.P. Lovecraft films out there. It is frightening, it is full of gore, and it's also extremely hilarious. The story is about Herbert West, a med student who develops this formula that can bring dead tissue back to life. Throughout the film, he tries to bring people back to life, but he ends up bringing them back as undead zombies. If you like a good bloody and gory horror movie, this movie is for you. And it is also very hilarious. Probably the funniest part of the movie is when West reanimates a cat. That's right, zombie cat. Can't get any more funnier than that. That's Reanimator for number 6. Speaking of funny horror movies, there is Evil Dead 2. Not only is Evil Dead 2 full of blood and gore, it is also extremely hilarious. This sequel/reboot of Evil Dead both picks up where the first movie left off and also does a quick retelling of the original movie. Basic story: Ash and his girlfriend Linda go to a cabin in the woods. There they found a Necronomicon. Linda is possessed and turned into an undead deadite, and hilarious antics and a bunch of blood and gore follow. This movie is a fun movie all the way around, and there is no way I would have left it off this list. Number 4 is the Italian picture Suspiria. In this movie, our lead is accepted into a fancy ballet academy. She soon comes to realize that there is a far more sinister aspect of the school, along with a series of gruesome murders. This movie has beautiful set designs along with beautiful cinematography. It also has some really unique and gruesome death scenes to be seen in cinema. To show you how good this movie is, I for one have not watched it in many years. But it left a strong enough impression on me that it has at least made it to number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list, The Evil Dead. The story of The Evil Dead is basically the exact same story of Evil Dead 2. But unlike Evil Dead 2, this movie was made to be specifically a horror movie. Any comedy in this movie is unintentional. Even though I might enjoy Evil Dead 2 a little bit more than I do The Evil Dead, as for a horror movie, it is still the better horror movie out of the two. It is twisted, it is very bloody, it's very gory, and they did wonders on a very small budget. This movie right here is also my go-to watch on Halloween. Almost every Halloween, I put this movie in. So with that, it makes it at number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list is The Exorcist. I don't feel I need to explain the plot of The Exorcist. It's a pretty popular enough movie. It was very difficult for me to actually put this at number 2. It almost made it to number 1 on my list. The reason for that is I find this movie absolutely terrifying. And even to this day, every time I watch this movie, it just gives me the creeps. It is a really scary movie. The visual effects, the acting, just the atmosphere that this movie creates. This movie just absolutely terrifies me. That is the reason why it almost made number 1 on my list. Best horror movie on my list? Alien. Alien is also one of those movies that I feel do not need an explanation. This movie franchise is quite recognizable. When compiling my list, Alien shot straight up to number 1. On all the movies on this list, this is the movie that gets the most replays. I might not find this movie as scary as The Exorcist, but come on, take a look at this. I mean, look at that. This is a set. It's not CGI. It's not a matte painting. This is a set. They built this. This is a fully live set. They don't do things like this anymore. In fact, they didn't really build sets this scale even back then. So not only is the sets extraordinary and the cinematography is amazing, the visual effects of the alien itself is absolutely, I think, the best version of the xenomorph out of all the Alien movies. And the version of the xenomorph in this movie just looks creepy. This is also one of my top go-to movies. So when I'm in the mood to watch a horror movie, there's a very good chance that this one will be the one I'll be watching. So there you go, my top 10 horror films. All the films on this list is, of course, my opinion. Your list will look totally different than mine. What films would you put on your list? What would your number 1 be? Please place your comments below or on my Twitter page. If you like this video, please press the like button. If you want to see more of my videos, please press the subscribe button.